Hey, I figured I'd get this video out just because it'd be a lot easier to run this tutorial by you, and mainly I'm just bored anyway, and I feel like getting off my ass and actually get on my computer, so this was kind of a good way to get me in front of the computer. So basically what's happening right now is you probably have a code that looks a little bit like this. When self hits an actor of sword, this is attached to my current enemy, which is the self, and then the sword would be the actor that's hitting it with the sword. Yours might look a little bit different, but play, hit. I just imported this sound into my game. I don't have any sounds into my game currently, so this is just a quick fix. But it probably goes something like this. We'll test the game, and I'm sure you're getting this machine gun. So this is what's happening. So typically, when you first start out, and I'm still really new at this stuff too, but so like a lot of these questions that you have are really, they resonate well with me because I'm still learning too. But if it's just like a bullet, like most people just have like a bullet that they're creating. Typically they have the bullet die on collision, which in turn would only trigger the sound once. If it's like a sword swipe or like a punch or a slap or something, that's obviously not going to die. So like a bullet would, so it's registering the collision probably like this. You can listen in here, right? That machine gun sound. So it's definitely not the desired effect. So what you can do is you can create a boolean. Now my code for my health management is quite long, as you can see. And then once you learn these booleans, you can start doing some stuff. Like this has a whole bunch of stuff in it. Like this is like a blinking effect that makes the enemy blink when you hit it, and then eventually when the health reaches 0, it explodes. I create like an explosion actor, debris effects, all that stuff, and then finally right at the end here it's a kill self. So just for now I'm going to just show you the power of this boolean. I'm going to actually drag this out, and I'm going to put the boolean in, and then the boolean itself is this guy here, melee invincible, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it invincible, you can call it ready, and we'll actually make a full fresh one to make things real easy. But I'm going to tuck this in here, and then we'll test it again. And so basically this is going to, when self hits an actor of sword, basically when the sword hits the enemy, if melee invincible, if invincible, this boolean is false, it's going to play the hit sound. Now you'll notice something, it's actually going to play, and then you have to turn the boolean to true. So watch this, it'll actually play twice, it should. Boom, 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 boom. And that's because I have my boolean. So basically this code reads, when self hits an actor of sword, if melee invincible equals false, play, hit. This is just a combo system, this melee combo, that's not really relevant, that's in my game. But set the melee invincible to true. So basically it's setting this boolean to true. The reason that sound just played twice is because right down here, do after 0.3 seconds, set melee invincible to false. So if we turn this to 0.6, the sound will only play once. The reason why it is because my hitbox is lingering more than 0.3 seconds, so it's registering twice. That's actually desirable for me in my game because I want the sword to actually hit twice and I want it to register twice. So this is the way, in Stencil, when something collides with another, if the one actor doesn't die like a bullet, it registers a shit ton of collisions, like a bunch of them. So when you're creating actors and sounds and stuff off of collision events, if you don't have these booleans attached to them, it'll just be doing it continuously. So watch this. This is only going to play once, hopefully. Yeah, and that's the desired effect that you probably want for your game. Again, if you were just shooting a bullet, see the bullets hitting this actor, if those bullets die on collision, so I wouldn't really need the boolean there. But it's good practice to set up these booleans. So this all seems like a whole bunch of garbage. Let's just get rid of it because it's confusing. Let's create a boolean from scratch. So here's the code that you probably have, something that looks like it. So let's just do, instead of setting up a health thing, I could get into that right now, but just to make things easier, let's create a new one. Go in, let's create a boolean. Let's just call it ready. Then I'm going to say if ready equals false, so if ready equals false, see, these blue booleans are always set to false initially. They're always, unless you did, like, when creating the scene, you turn them to true. But they're always set to false by default. So if ready equals false, you're going to play the sound, and then you're going to set it to true. But you're also going to want to play the sound at some point again after you're done slapping the guy or punching the guy or whatever. So we're going to go into a time thing. And then we're going to do after, you know, what did I say before? For my game, it was like 0.6 seconds. It might be 0.5 seconds. It might be 0.2 seconds, depending on how long your slap animation is. But the 0.6 seconds, we're going to set it back to false. Copy that back in. So let's just show you the boolean, or set it without the boolean in place. So without it in place, which is what you have, it's going to do that machine gun effect. And it's also really good to do these, I call them invincible for the most part, because if you have health tied into it, like you can see right in here, where as the boolean, as it's triggering, it's I could also manage the health as well. So it sets health minus itself, which would mean that the character would be invincible. So right now you're going to get the machine gun effect. Now we're going to go back in, get our boolean in. If ready equals false, play hit. Now this would work once and only once, watch. If we set it to true. So if ready equals false, play hit, and then set ready to true. So this will trigger the sound only once, but it'll only do it one time and only one time, because we're not setting it back to where it needs to be. One, and that's all we get. Boom, 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 no sound, because it's not being set back to false. Let's keep this in, do after 0.6 seconds, let's set it ready to false. And you can call that boolean whatever you want, whatever makes sense to you. I call it usually invincible or ready. I use booleans like that all the time. Booleans are just like your best friend in the world. Like, once you figure out the power of a true and false statement, you know, I mean, I usually use booleans a lot for like animation switches, or when I want or to trigger enemy AI and stuff, or to trigger enemy movement. You know, it can go through a whole bunch of checks. And this should play it. Boom, and then there it is. So if you come down here to my dash attack, which is a very similar setup, I've got the boolean is called invincible. So if melee invincible equals false, I do all this other stuff and I apply those brightness effects and everything. But then here we go, we set health to health minus sword damage, which is the damage that the sword usually does. I do some effects in here, and then my boolean right here turns to false again. And then I also handle my health as well. If health equals 0, flash the screen, do the kill explosion, create all the debris, and then kill yourself. So that's all wrapped in this if statement. And what that effectively does, and I know it's confusing at first, but you'll get the hang of it. What that effectively does, since it's all wrapped in this if statement, is it creates invincibility states, which is why I call it invincible. So for this 0.6 seconds, or 0.3 seconds, or whatever, you know, none of this stuff happens. Means the enemy doesn't take any damage. It creates a small invincibility state, which is really helpful for like player characters, because everybody in the world as a player expects when they get hit that their character is typically going to blink a little bit and they're going to get a little bit of invincibility. You know, you want to give your player some invincibility after they get hit. So this is the way you do that with these invincibility states. This is probably not a really good example because it's pretty, I don't want to call it complex because it's not really complex, but it's just busy. There's shit everywhere. I create coins, debris effects and stuff, but in the end it's these booleans here. So in your code should look something like this. Create a boolean. You can call it ready, you can call it invincible, you can call it sound ready, sound off, sound play, whatever. You know, so when self hits an actor of sword, or however you're triggering this event, if ready equals false or sound ready equals false, play the sound, set that boolean to true, and then do after however many seconds your punch animation is, then set ready to false so it can be triggered again. That's how you do it.